Clair Obscur Expedition 33, a game with almost as many game awards as I have fingers. If I lose a pinky, we'll be tied. The game also has some of the best turn-based combat that I've ever played. Expedition 33 is getting a ton of well-deserved praise for its compelling storytelling, but at the end of the day, it is still a video game. And if the game part of the video game doesn't work, the whole thing falls apart. This game's combat is the foundation that the rest of it is built on, and I want to know how they built it so dang well. I'm Joe, and this is Play Tracing, where we break down games to learn how to make better ones. In this beret-filled video, we're gonna see how Expedition 33 turns what I used to think were outdated mechanics into a deep and rewarding combat system. Minor spoiler warning, as I will be showing footage and discussing some later game areas, boss fights, and mechanics. I'll only talk about one story spoiler at the end of Act 1, but I'll let you know when that is in case you want to skip it. All right, let's get started. Before we ask why Expedition 33's combat works so well, we need to ask, why use turn-based combat at all? The AAA games industry has largely moved away from turn-based JRPG combat and moved to more real-time action RPG combat. There are a lot of benefits to turn-based combat though. Because the player doesn't have direct control of the camera, the devs can make these fights look so good. Just look at Persona 5. Persona 5 gets a lot of credit for making turn-based combat more exciting, and Expedition 33 takes a lot from it. The camera constantly moves around and makes the act of navigating menus visually interesting. The menus themselves look incredible and are laid out in fun, dynamic ways that change as you navigate them. The animations and camera movements for player attacks make them look absolutely incredible, and they look way better than they could if this were an action RPG where the player has control of the camera and character movement. In addition to looking great, these fights sound incredible. Any experience is gonna be made better by a soundtrack that is this good. It's gorgeous, epic, and extremely French.
Guess what? I got a fever. And the only prescription is more accordion.
Turn-based JRPGs are known for having excellent music, but this game legitimately has one of the best soundtracks that I've ever heard, and it absolutely contributes to the success of the combat system.
I mean, just listen to this! It's just so good.
Along with all of this awesomeness on screen and in our ears, turn-based combat benefits from being much more tactical than real-time combat. When it's your turn, you can take as long as you need to plan out your next move. Expedition 33 takes advantage of this by using something called the action economy. It works like this. Each party member gains 1 action point, or AP, per turn. And once they've built up enough AP, they can spend it on powerful skills to hurt enemies and help allies. Combat revolves around managing your party members' AP so that you can make effective use of their skills to win the battle. Where this gets really interesting is when you account for multiple party members. Mayel, for example, has a skill that does a lot of extra damage if the character she's attacking is marked. So before you use that skill, you might want to have one of your other party members apply marked to the enemy. So you can use Gustave's aptly named marking shot skill to apply marked to the enemy and set up Mayel for big damage. This is all great, but you can even take it a step further. Mayel also has a specific combat system just for her, where on every turn she can be in one of several stances that affect her stats. You really want to be in this virtuoso stance to deliver lots of damage. So in addition to setting up for Mayel's turn by using Gustave's skill, it pays to set up for it on Mayel's previous turn by getting into the virtuoso stance. A lot of the fun of this combat comes from tweaking your skills, weapons, stats, and other things so they all align to whatever strategy you have for obliterating enemies. Mayel isn't the only party member to have her own unique battle system. All of your party members have their own unique systems, and it's incredibly satisfying to lay the groundwork for a big attack and have it pay off. For all of the things that it does well, turn-based combat has historically had problems that have turned people away from the genre.
Oh, definitely not me, though. No siree. Turn-based combat lover right over here. My Octopaths are traveling and my fantasies are final.
I honestly thought this kind of combat was outdated. I just didn't think a turn-based system would feel as good to play as an action RPG where you have more control as a player. In a lot of turn-based RPGs, the player takes a turn, then the enemy takes a turn, and that goes back and forth until somebody wins. This creates an awkward amount of time where the player has no agency, and success or failure is determined in a large part by the player's level, but also by random chance. If the enemy does their big ultimate attack, there's nothing you can do but sit and wait for it to happen. That's not gonna feel good. The Expedition 33 devs agreed with this. They didn't want a situation where the player faced an enemy attack with no option for counterplay. So, inspired by the parrying system in Sekiro, they implemented reactive turn-based combat. So, when an enemy attacks you, you have the option to either dodge or parry the enemy attack and take no damage. This gives the player much more agency in battle, and the game can technically be beaten without taking any damage at all, though I think I'd personally have a tough time with that. Reactive turn-based combat is nothing new. Paper Mario and the 1,000-Year Door is one of many Mario RPGs that make use of it. And it makes the combat very engaging for a game that came out 22 years ago. Oh dear God, I'm getting old. That gave me more of an existential crisis than this game did. What makes Expedition 33's combat special is that it takes full advantage of its reactive elements to make battles incredibly dynamic. The decision whether to dodge or parry is an interesting one the player gets to make every time an enemy attacks. Both negate any damage you take from an attack, but parrying is more valuable to the player, because if you successfully parry an enemy attack, you get extra AP. And if you parry the whole enemy combo, you get to counterattack for big damage. Conversely, dodging is easier. The window to dodge, the amount of time you have to press the button to successfully dodge, is about 50% bigger than the window to parry. 0.22 seconds compared to 0.15 seconds. If those windows sound small, it's because they are. This is a tough game, but it gets away with such small windows because the enemy and boss attack animations are so well done. Not only do they look amazing and imbue enemies with a sense of personality, but they also very effectively telegraph when an attack is coming. It almost never feels like it's your fault when you take damage in this game. Some of the boss animations can be very tough to get a feel for at first, but once you learn them, you can reliably avoid most attacks. The sound design in these fights also helps make up for the tight timing windows. Sound cues are used all over the place to inform the player when it is that they should try and dodge. In many cases, just listening to the sounds is more helpful than looking at the animations. This is already a super solid base for the combat, but Expedition 33 builds on it further into the game. In Act 2, gradient attacks are introduced for both enemies and players. For players, you slowly fill up this bar over the course of combat, and when you fill it up, you get to unleash a super powerful attack. But enemies also get their own gradient attacks. The screen goes monochromatic, it goes all slow motion for a second, and you have to parry at the right time or you'll take a lot of damage. The upside is, if you do parry correctly, you get to hit back for big damage. There's no in-between, however. You can't dodge these attacks. It's either super big success or super big failure. These big moments spice up the combat, and it's very cool to start out being terrified of these attacks when you're unfamiliar with the timing and more likely to fail, and end up excited to see an enemy try one of these because you're confident you can pull off a counter. Yet another benefit of the reactive combat is how it affects difficulty. I mentioned earlier that this game is hard, and it is. Some of these bosses really don't pull their punches.
Sir, can you please stop? This is getting a little ridiculous.
Even though this game is tough, it's flexible with how it lets you tackle challenging fights, kinda like Elden Ring. The bosses can make you want to pull your hair out, but the game gives you a lot of tools and different approaches to handle them. If the precise timing for parrying isn't your thing, you can use these things called pictos to optimize your characters to pull off crazy combos. They give your characters different kinds of buffs, and you get to mix and match these pictos with party members' weapons, which also have unique effects. Combining weapons and pictos gives you loads of different strategies you can employ in combat. For example, Verso here has a weapon that allows him to take an extra turn after he uses his base attack. You typically don't want to be using your base attack later on into the game, as it's relatively weak compared to your skills, but Verso's weapon essentially gives you a free base attack every turn, which also gives you an extra action point every turn. Combine this with pictos that allow you to deal more damage by using your base attack, and you can start doing a ton of extra damage to your enemies while building up more action points to do even more damage with your skills. Even if you don't want to become a mad scientist with all the pictos and skills, and still don't want to perfect your parry timing, the game still has another option for you. It's absolutely stuffed with side content that you can opt into, and this side content gives you lots of experience points for leveling up, making your characters stronger and fights easier. I got very invested into the story and just blazed through the game, a tendency of mine. And I beat it when my characters were level 43-ish, but you could easily beat it at level 80 by just doing a bunch of the side content that I opted out of. All this side content also gives you more weapons and pictos, and as you level up more, you get access to more powerful skills. All of this can make the game easier and more fun for you if you decide to opt in. Expedition 33 also does some interesting things to modulate difficulty on a level-by-level basis. Later on in Act 2, you need to fight this boss called Visage. Visage? Visage. Once you get to the level where the boss is, you can immediately challenge him, but he'll get backed up by these 3 huge masks that give him various buffs, making it really tough to beat him. So you have the option to go and individually take down any or all of these masks to make the fight easier. I fought all 3 masks, but it would be completely possible to beat the boss after defeating only 1 or 2. The choice is completely up to the player, which is very cool. One of the best things about Expedition 33's combat is how it changes as the game progresses. This is a long game, but it doesn't feel padded or stretched because the combat consistently evolves over time. Those gradient attacks I mentioned earlier don't get introduced until around 15 hours into the game. And as you continue to pick up new members of Expedition 33, you get new combat systems to play with. And you keep getting new members until midway through Act 2. New pictos and weapons can drastically change how you approach combat, and you're constantly given more of them. Lune eventually gets a weapon that lets her take advantage of the free aim system. Oh, I haven't even talked about the free aim system yet. It's a fun system where you can freely aim your weapon and shoot at enemies for the cost of 1 AP. The bullets? We'll call them bullets. The bullets don't do much damage, so you'll mostly use it to attack enemy weak points and to hit these flying enemies that dodge most of your regular attacks. As I was saying before, one of Luna's weapons has the perk of allowing her to gain 1 elemental stain when she uses one of her shots. She can use these stains to upgrade her attacks, so if you opt into it, there's a whole strategy about fueling your big attacks with stains you get from free aim shots. This completely changes how you approach combat, and it's one of about 20 weapons for just Luna that all have their own unique effects. And every party member has access to their own assortment of weapons that can change your strategies in combat. So combat with these same characters can look wildly different from battle to battle, and it's one of the reasons I never got bored with this game. The combat for Expedition 33 isn't perfect, however, and its biggest weakness is how it's taught to the player. The game likes to throw big walls of text with lots of new terms at you, which can be very overwhelming. One of the reasons Expedition 33 gets away with these clunky tutorials is it doesn't force you to use all of its mechanics. I was intimidated by the Picto system and only had half of the Picto slots filled for my party for about half of the game. And I didn't encounter any times where I thought my characters were underleveled or underpowered. Another way the game makes up for the tutorials is through the use of the character Gustave. He's the first character you're introduced to in the game and is the first one you battle with as well. I mentioned earlier that every party member has their own unique combat system, and Gustave's is the simplest to understand. As he attacks, parries, and dodges, he builds up his overcharge meter. And when the meter fills up, he can use his overcharge skill to deal a ton of damage. This is much simpler than Mayel's system we discussed earlier, where all of her skills put her into different stances that have various effects on her other skills, and I'm even having a tough time explaining it right now, so I can understand why they had a tough time teaching it to the player. Since dodging and parrying build up Gustave's overcharge meter, the game is giving new players another reason to dodge and parry. The player is going to need to get comfortable with both of these to survive the game, so the game gives them this positive incentive in addition to the negative incentive of taking damage. What I'm going to talk about next contains big spoilers for the end of Act 1, so consider yourself spoiler warned. You can go to this timestamp if you want to skip over this part. The game really effectively merges mechanics with story at the end of Act 1 when Gustave dies. Since Gustave's overcharge system is so simple and easy to teach, it's not quite as robust as the systems for the other party members. By the time I got to the end of Act 1, it started to feel like Gustave's combat was just a bit less compelling than everybody else's. The game offers a very brutal solution to this by killing off my poor boy. Oh, I'm gonna miss you, buddy. In killing off Gustave, the game removes the easiest combat system and effectively replaces it with its most unforgiving one. Verso, who very unceremoniously replaces Gustave, has a system that punishes you for getting hit by an enemy. As he goes through battle without taking damage, he raises this letter grade that makes his attacks do more damage as the letter grade gets better. As you get to the better letters, you unlock the potential to do a lot of damage. But you have to have effectively mastered dodging and parrying to take advantage of this, something that Gustave's system prepares you for. One last sacrifice for the greater good. Man, Gustave really is just the best. At this point, the player is forced to mechanically grow up a bit, which perfectly mirrors Mayel, who must grow up a bit after the death of her caretaker. The player doesn't just feel the death of Gustave emotionally, but they also experience it mechanically. It's very powerful. Expedition 33 is a game that's gonna stick with me for a long time. The characters are very compelling and shockingly real, considering the fantastical setting of the game. The fantastical setting itself is both stunning and inspired. And guys, I might actually be addicted to the soundtrack for this game. It's so freaking good. But perhaps the most lasting impact this game will have on me is that it opened my eyes to an entire new genre. It accomplished this mostly on the back of the combat system. It's dynamic, tough but fair, and even helps to tell the marvelous story that this game has to tell. It lets the player choose how they want to approach it, and then tosses them into these epic boss fights that just make you feel awesome. If you haven't played it already, I could not recommend this game more highly. It's the rare game that actually lives up to the hype, and it was built by a new indie studio with a core team of around 30 people. It's incredibly heartening to see the games industry move in this direction, and I will wait with bated breath for Sandfall Interactive's next game. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. Feel free to like or subscribe if you want to see more stuff like it. But I want to know what you guys think. Did the combat change anybody else's mind on turn-based games? Is there something awesome about the game I didn't bring up? How many berets is too many berets? Let me know in the comments. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some more awesome music to listen to. I'll catch you guys next time.